there, and welcome to the DIY table. So here is one of the very first books that we wrote with Sky, and it was just a belonging book, something to introduce who her parents are, where she came from. And then throughout the years, she has been going back to this and she has loved it, and she's put her own art. So this is her own artwork. She did this when she was 3 years old. And then as well was when she was about 4 years old, I just asked her questions like, oh, who is this? And she would say Baby Sky. And so that's what I wrote. And these are her words. Sky is a baby coming out of mom's tummy. And these are her words. This was when she was about 4 years old. And then we talk about it, and she would say what it was. And so these are her words. This is her talking, and I just typed it up and I wrote it. And I allowed her to stick it because she liked to stick it. And so that's one way you can help your child, or you encourage writing as early as the toddler years, when you just record their own voice. Sometimes something very visual, as just plain pictures of perhaps a very memorable experience like a party, is more than enough for them. And this will really allow the children to keep wanting to go back and to look at it and to really see and understand their experiences. Here's another thing that was made when she was about 4 to 5 years old. She made a little family book. And what's special about this is that she bound it herself. So as you can see, these are all scratch papers, and which she put together. She placed 4 pieces together. She placed like 3 here, and it's definitely a real process. And what's great was that she had every say in it. This was totally her, led by her, and she chose the pictures. She chose how to put it, how to color it in, and she even placed it and stuck it together. So that's one great example of how she gets inspired from the books that she already has to be compelled to and to create her own. Here's another book we created together when she was about 4 as well, and it's an alphabet book. So this is 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's used to be an old sketch pad, which we redid, and we have different letters here and different things that we see from single-use packaging. We cut up the letters, or from magazines, and then she just pasted as we go. So this was an ongoing thing for many months. And what's great about this is that it really shows what it is that is familiar. So it's a great way to understand letters and be familiar through seeing it in our own food, in our own packaging, and we see this in our lives. So it's more relatable when she goes to the supermarket. It's easy for her to recognize as well. So it's a really great way of mixing literacy in a very practical manner. You're not only upcycling, but at the same time, you're also retaining the everyday things that we eat. So these are just everyday things that we have here, we eat, and so it really brings that message home of healthy eating. At the same time, brings home the message of everything starts with a letter, and that we can reuse and upcycle and make our own resources. Now here's a process I wanted to show you. So as I said, writing is a process, and it starts with mind mapping, with organizing. So even this process of mind mapping this specific story took 3 tries. And every time it was a different, there was something different, or the idea wasn't fully finished. So we processed it again and again until she was really happy with what she came with. And then we took pictures of her storyline and we placed it in. And then after we took the pictures of her storyline, she bound it and she put it together. She was able to write her story on paper. She cut it up and she pasted it herself. But here is a story that she wrote, and she might be able to read this to you because it does follow the Story Mountain framework, and it's a perfect example for a first try for someone who was about 6 or 7 years old. No, 6 years old when this was made. So once again, children, they learn in different times and different ways. But what we want is we really want to be able to share the joy of writing to them, because writing is joyful. So here's an example of a story pyramid. And then after that story pyramid, she started to illustrate it and write her sentences. And she went very far, even almost finished it. But then again, sometimes, it's not about finishing. It's not about the product, but the process. The fact that she underwent through the process of brainstorming, then plotting it out on a story map, and then being able to put it together like this and number her pages. So you can see from here, which was, there's a lot of help here from an adult. This one had no help from an adult. This was just all her story and her voice, and it's really her going through this process. And she continues to show the joy of writing, and it really isn't about the perfect spelling, the perfect cover page, but it's just about enjoying the fact that you have the ability to be able to express yourself through the written word. And sometimes we tend to forget this. We're so into what needs to be done, the task that needs to be completed, that we tend to forget that the learners need to find joy in what it is they're learning, or else it won't retain, they won't want to do it, and it's just going to be nothing but a mundane task and not a learning experience. So here's also her attempting to bookbind, and once again, this is a process. Even the bookbinding is a process, how she went through the process of covering it and glued so many things together, and how she went through writing it. And as you can see, the words aren't perfectly laid out, perfectly spelled, and they're not in perfect structure, but it's really not about that. What it is was that she enjoyed this process, and she is going through this process. She's got 12 years, they've got many, many more years of learning, and you want to instill that love and that foster that process. So there's another example of her and some stories as well. And that's all for